How's it going, everyone? thirstydogMTG here, bringing you a Pauper deck tech. Yes, a Pauper deck tech is my first deck tech, and this one's pretty fun, especially if you're really into budget decks, because I believe this guy was less than $5 when I bought it a while ago. I've been playing it quite a bit, testing it out. It can hold up against a lot of decks. I mean, it's not tier 1, far from that, but a lot of the testing I've done so far, I've actually held my own against Affinity, Tron, Delver, whatnot, what have you, especially when you fire off your enchantments with the creatures that I'll show you in a little bit here. So, the idea is, it's called Orzhov Lifegain, but the Lifegain part of it is not really the win condition. It's really just about dumping out some creatures, hitting them up with some enchantments, and going off with damage. So, I'll start off by showing you guys the land, which is just 9 plains, 9 swamps, pretty simple. Only 18 lands, but there's really only, one creature that's 3 converted mana cost. The rest of them are just 2, so don't really need to rely on your lands too much. Your mana base is pretty simple. Your creatures, let's see, starting off, the first guy we have here is an Echoron Skyguard. So we have a flyer here, and every time you target this creature, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So it's evasive, and you get bonus every time you target it with the plethora of enchantments that we have in this deck. Some removal. Next creature would be a Morning Thrall, another flyer, evasive. This guy gives you life gain, and it's a black and white creature, which will be important in a little bit when I show you the rest of the enchantments. Night Sky Mimic. Now this one can be brutal, especially if you have a bunch of black and white spells in your hand. So, for 2 converted mana costs, which you can pay with either white or black for the second mana, you only get a 2/1 creature. But every time you cast a spell that's both black and white, it turns into a 4/4 flyer. So there's a good chance every turn you can actually fire this off and have a 4/4 flyer, which is actually likely to be even more powerful based on the enchantments you give it. And our last 2 converted mana cost creature is a Tithe Drinker, which has lifelink. It's 2/1 for 2. And it also has Extort, which another creature in this deck also has Extort. It's not that relevant, but if you're trying to finish the game off, it can be really helpful when they're really low and you just have blockers up and you can't get around it if you don't have any flyers out. Or if they have flyers out and they're defending. Or if they have plenty of removal. So the last creature in this deck is a Kingpin's Pet. So just like the Tide Drinker, this guy also has Extort. So again, you can use it to kind of just chip away your opponent. Also gain life yourself. So this gets a 3-drop, 2/2 flyer, once again evasive. And so the one sorcery we have in this deck is a bit of control aspect to it, which is Castigate, which kind of like the rest, except it costs a black and a white, so it's a little harder to cast, but it's a bit more flexible as well, because we can target creatures in their hand as well, and that card is exiled instead of being discarded. As well, because it is black and white, it also will trigger our Night Sky Mimic, turning it into a 4/4 flyer from a 2/1 non-flyer, so it's pretty useful to control the board, or control the hand, as well as enable one thing pretty much. And so for the rest of the enchantments, besides the one I already showed you, Junior Nowhere, which is pretty important, it's great to have some decent amount of removal. It's not too much in this deck, it's really the only one main boarded, and we have a bunch sideboarded in case you need it. So the rest of the cards are just enchantments for the most part, starting off with Ethereal Armor. So you enchant this creature, it gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and this creature has first strike, which is pretty great. Chances are you're going to be putting out multiple enchantments by turn 3 or 4. So this guy gets buffed for every other enchantment, including its own enchantment itself. And first strike, so they're probably not going to be wanting to block your creature, and then they'll find out later that once you get a few more enchantments out, they're likely dead. As long as you can get them out and not countered, or your creature's not removed. Some protection, God's Willing. So you hold up a white mana a lot of the time just to protect your creature in case there is removal. Hopefully it's not against the mono black control deck where they'll make you sacrifice it, but if that's the case, that kind of sucks, but it's pretty much the only way around it, and it enables you to scry 1, which can be pretty important later in the game once you're down to only a couple cards. Unholy Strength, pretty simple. for 1 black, you get a +2/+1 buff for the creature. But combined with the ethereal armor and the next enchantment can be pretty great, and it adds up pretty quickly. And the last enchantment is an Edge of the Divinity. So chances are the creature you're going to be enchanting is going to get +3/+3, because as long as the creature's white, they get +1/+2, or if the creature's black, they get +2/+1. So if they're both, they get +3/+3. So even if you're targeting creatures such as the Acheron Skyguard, because this creature gets +1/+1 every time you target the creature, but the targeting, including another creature in the sideboard, really is pretty beneficial, because even if spells that you cast, such as enchantments, are countered, you still get the buff with the +1/+1 counter. And so these kind of spells, Edge of the Divinity, also enable your Night Sky Mimic. So oftentimes you'll be flying +7/+7, or +7/+6 with your enchantments. So if they don't have removal, they're in trouble. And that pretty much wraps up the main board. You just have a bunch of flyers and lifelinkers and whatnot just flying at them all the time. And I would say, for the most part, if they don't have removal, it's game over. Now, if you have a matchup such as Elves or Delver, their sideboard is pretty important, because you're going to want a few more key removal spells. First one I want to mention is Tragic Slip. So yeah, Delver out. Probably want to get that guy off the board before he flips. So oftentimes you just hold up a black mana, wait for him to play. If you're on the play, and then on his draw and he plays a Delver, boom, instantly removed. Bloodcraze Hoplite, kind of like the Acheron Skyguard, he gets buffed for anytime you cast a spell that targets him, but he's also useful against other decks that often use +1/+1 counters on their creatures, because anytime a counter is placed on him, you get to remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature your opponent controls. And some of the other enchantments are similar removal. Bonds of Faith, obviously not as good as Journey to Nowhere, but blocks down a creature from attacking or blocking. It's useful. Another Kingpin's Pet, if you want some more creatures. I don't really oftentimes board this guy in. Most of the time when I'm boarding in is a Tragic Slip. Usually all 3 of them. I haven't really found myself boarding in anything else so far, because basically you just want to get creatures out and try to kill them as fast as possible with your enchantments. So the other enchantments are Eternal Thirst. You got 3 of them. So whenever you enchant a creature, that creature gets lifelink, and whenever a creature your opponent controls dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, which can be pretty useful. But like I said, you really want as many creatures as possible, a little bit of removal, which you already have in main board. So yeah, like I said earlier, most of the time I'm just boarding and Tragic Slips, especially against Delver and Elves. Although the matchup against Elves, that deck can go off insanely quickly. Turn 3, you're kind of finished already. So it's a pretty bad matchup to begin with. But if you can get a Tragic Slip out early, prevent them from, getting mana off a Mana Dork or something similar, prevent them from the fast start, it'd be useful. So that is pretty much it. I've had a lot of fun playing this deck. I would say probably win about half the time, since it's not really a tier 1 deck, but a lot of those wins still come against, like I said earlier, Affinity, Tron, Delver. Mono Black Control, pretty rough, but for the most part, you can have a pretty good chance at a win if you have at least a few lands in hand when you start. I found that you don't have to have both a Plains and a Swamp out, although obviously it's very useful. But if you have just one color out, because of the flexibility of Edge of the Divinity and Night Sky Mimic and Morning Thrall, being able to cast either black or white for those spells, pretty useful. So that's it, guys. That is a deck tech of Orzhov Lifegain. Like I said, it's really cheap. If you want to try it out, it's really not that much money to get it. And if you don't already have the cards, you're spending a few bucks online. In paper, I still think it's pretty cheap, maybe a few bucks more. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck tech for Orzhov Lifegain. Hope you guys liked my first deck tech. Let me know how I did. I know it's probably a little shaky, but you know, it's my first time. So still, hope you guys enjoyed it.